It is the best car in the world, allegedly. Well, this week I introduce to you the new addition to the Fast and Fun garage. My 2012 Range Rover L322 TDV8 Westminster. And to see whether this is a brave or a stupid decision, only time will tell. This week, I'm going to tell you why, of all the choices I had for my ultimate 10k SUV, I plump for this bad boy. Welcome to this week's video. It's Rich with another Fast and Fun. So just a reminder, what was my key criteria for buying this? Well, I wanted something that could replace my Fabia VRS and my Shogun Sport and wrap it into one car. I wanted performance, and we'll come on to the power that this TDV8 delivers. I wanted daily ability. We'll come on to the assumed MPG that I can get out of this car. Space. I think you'll consider this as one of the biggest cars on the road. I wanted towing. I wanted space for the dogs. And the key was I wanted off-road ability. This car needs and will be used off-road. And for all the research I did, the Cayenne, the X5 and many others, I always kept coming back to the Range Rover. But why wasn't it a done deal? For two main reasons. One was reliability and one was cost of ownership. Closely linked together. They're unreliable, they'll cost you the earth to run. And those frightening messages you read on the forums, these turbo failures, air suspension failures, there's just so much with these high-tech cars that can go wrong. And that's what kept me from immediately going to this Range Rover. But the odd thing is, on all the forums and all the research I do, the people, the owners that moan about the poor reliability, they moan about the cost of ownership, they have something in common. They've always bought Range Rovers, and their plan is to keep buying Range Rovers. So if they're so unreliable, if they're so costly to run, why? What makes the Range Rover so special? And there's an interesting video on YouTube where both Harry Metcalf from Harry's Garage and Jeremy Clarkson meet up and they refer to this, the L322, as the best car in the world. How could I discount it? So, brave or stupid pill has been swallowed. I've hunted down this very end-of-the-line 2012 Westminster, and I'm sure in the next 6 to 12 months we'll find out which one is right, brave or stupid. So the L322s, built for 10 years, from 2002 to 2012, and they were the third generation of the Range Rover. They came in a variety of petrol and diesels. For me, wanted to use it as a daily diesel, it had to be. They came out with the 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel in the early years, but in 2006 they jumped up to a V8, a 3.6 TDV8, and it was from then on that these Range Rovers got the diesel power that's needed. But towards the end of the production in 2010 through to the end of production in 2012, they brought out the 4.4 TDV8. What a stonking engine this is. So just run you through some of the numbers. 315 brake horsepower these TDV8s have, but they have a colossal 510 pounds-feet of torque. That is 700 newton meters. That is serious torque, and that gives performance from as little as 1500 RPM. So right down, low down in the rev range, you've got this gigantic amount of torque, which means that this big heavyweight, 2.6, 2.7 ton giant, gets propelled down the road faster than you can ever comprehend. Now, of course, it's not a sports car. Of course, it's not fast in a sports car sense. But in the sense of a gigantic 2.6 tonne SUV, this thing can move and move faster than you can think. Spec. Now, I always thought Vogue, in my being a Range Rover virgin, that Vogue was the top spec. Well, it's not. You actually have Vogue that sits at the bottom. You then got Vogue SE that adds a couple of niceties above it. And then you've got the top of the range Autobiography. And that's the hierarchy. And then you've got this end of the run parts bin special called the Westminster, which is what this is. And when I looked into it, the difference in the specs, and when I do a full review, I'll talk about the specs in more detail, but to tell you the truth, they ain't a lot of difference between any of them. Cooling seats, headlining, leather, as in different quality of leather, but largely you're nitpicking at the specs. For me, condition, history, more important than the spec. I'd have quite happily gone for a Vogue. And the L322s, they're big, they're square, they're angular. They are, for me, this third generation, the last of the old school Range Rovers. They don't try to be anything other than big, robust, angular bricks going through the air. There's no aerodynamics on this car. Listen to the doors and boots shut with a thud and a clunk. There's no lightness here. When they moved to the fourth generation in 2013, the L405, they were 400 kilos lighter. Now that's 4 of me lighter. That's an incredible weight saving. But you just look at the L405s and they look more streamlined, they look more luxurious. For me, they've tipped the balance into a luxury car rather than a true all-rounder. I mean, how many L405s, the fourth generation, do you see ploughing around fields? You don't. At best, you'll see one of these, the L322. This third gen, for me, it's got the balance between off-road usability, the ruggedness, the old-school Tonka toy look, compared to the later, more luxurious L405. And of course, that suffers. Fuel consumption suffers because of the weight. But those TDV8s, the 4.4 is actually more frugal than the 3.6. And apparently you can, with a feathery right foot, get well into the 30s miles per gallon. And that's impressive considering my next best car really is the Megane that averages around 32. To think that this 2.6 tonne giant could average what the Megane's averaging is quite unbelievable really. Values of the, Range Rovers in general have absolutely plummeted. This comparable car, this 12 months ago, would have quite easily been in the teens. 13, 14, 15,000 for sure. But I bought this 124,000 miles and I paid just over nine for it. Now that for me is incredible value. And I know it will continue to plummet and I know values will continue to drop because of cost of fuel, cost of insurance that's ever increasing on these cars. Road tax is expensive. The whole running cost is expensive. The reliability issues or the potential money pit that you can put into these cars. I get all those. But for me, it still seems like a cracking buy. And of course, being a Range Rover, it's got the famous split rear tailgate, which is absolutely great. And it's not, I have to say, the perfect car. Not at all. There's bits of rust. In fact, you probably can't see, but there's a section of 4 or 5 inches of rust. It's a known issue. There's 1 or 2 little blemishes on the car. I've paid £9,000 for it. But inside, the cream leather seats and the black piping and all the switches and the touch screen and the digital dash and everything that makes it, it looks premium, but yet it's got a ruggedness. We've got a dog guard in and a boot liner and to be used, and it will be used, and forgive the filth and dirt on the outside of the car because well, it's the British winter and it's a daily and it's used. And it will continue to be used. And we'll see whether it's the right decision or it's the wrong decision. But I hope you come on the journey with me throughout 2024 and potentially beyond. This may be a short-lived ownership if it all goes wrong and pales into being a complete money pit, or it may be a long-term love affair that I have with Range Rover. I don't know. I look forward to this. All I will say is when I was hunting for these, there's a lot out there. It's a buyer's market. I did a lot of my inquiries online with phone calls, sharing photos, sharing videos, and I think there's some unscrupulous, well, I know there's some unscrupulous cars out there, because when I started prying, it's when the phone calls stop or the messaging stops, and you just know you've found a potential issue. This one sold it for me because there's a 2012, so 12 years old this year, 11 stamps in the book, annually serviced from new. For me, that spelt great service history. The guy that had owned it for a couple of years and had serviced it by his local independent landy dealer, and it's those type of cars for me. If you look on some of the other, and this was from Auto Trader, Facebook Marketplace is now almost for me unusable when searching for cars. The amount of scammers out there, whether genuine or just used and abused examples, the percentage now, I used to say 50% were scammers. I think it's 75%. It just seems awash with dodgy cars. I didn't have much success on eBay or any of the other platforms. The one trusted source I normally go to, the best cars I find are on Auto Trader. And that's where I found this one. Whether it's the right decision or not, we shall find out. There we go. This is it. Hope you follow me on this journey. If you enjoy the video, as always, thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned. Oh, and by the way, there will be a full review of this coming in the coming weeks when I've had it a few more weeks and got to know some of its traits and issues. Thanks for watching, guys.